In 1 Corinthians 3:6, Paul says, "I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God made it grow." All of the people and the decades of work hasn't led to the growth and ministry we have today. God brings growth because it is God who changes lives and sanctifies us.
So when you see big numbers at a student life event or a work life event, even when you see new resources or more people being sent overseas, when you see the Tandem ministry sign, and reflect on all the ministries that have been added under that umbrella, know that it was God who brought the growth, and to Him be all the glory.
One aspect of growth in ministry today has been wisely adapting to the times that we are in, and today's age is evidently digital. We've learned that though the gospel doesn't change, the way you present it does.
Hi, my name's Carl, and I lead digital strategies for us here at Tandem Ministries. I remember in 2011 when we first started to see the need for a focus on digital strategies in Tandem Ministries. And we're seeing that the world was increasingly becoming digital, and so we needed to focus on digital strategies as digital was increasingly becoming a normal part of how people were living their lives. I remember for myself personally when I first began to see the need for digital strategies. I was in Hong Kong, and one of the biggest struggles I had there with ministry at the time was language. So I began to look for tools that would lessen my dependence on my poor Cantonese skills. And so I was finding digital tools. In fact, I remember one time after a prayer meeting when I shared a video on my old phone with a small screen of my son doing a kung fu routine. And everyone just gathered around, a crowd around looking at that screen. And I thought, what if instead of a video of my son doing kung fu, there was a video that could start a conversation about the gospel? One of the key ways in which we're using digital is to provide resources for our partners in the Pacific. And so we have provided tools to help people share the gospel in Samoan, in Tongan, and talk Pisin, the language of Papua New Guinea. And what we're finding with digital is that digital allows us to multiply our impact. Take, for example, a student can share their testimony one-on-one like we're talking now. Or maybe they can share their testimony in a room to 100 people. But you put that testimony on social media, and that testimony can go to thousands, tens or hundreds of thousands of people even. And this is the power of digital strategies.
Another aspect of growth we experienced was the exciting change in 2018 when New Zealand became a part of the Pacific region.
The staff in Fiji, Tonga, Samoa and Papua New Guinea have such passion and perseverance in their faith. This change broadened New Zealand's perspective as we became more globally aware and partnered with the ministries on the islands.
Hi, my name's Justin O'Malley and I serve as the National Director for Tandem Ministries here in New Zealand. I've served in that role since 2013, which has been wonderful. During that time, God has laid it on my heart and our leadership team's heart to expand our vision and scope that we're responsible for. We were approached a few years ago about helping provide leadership and partnering with the Pacific Islands Ministry, and that's just been fantastic to consider. It's a little bit scary to think through growing our vision, not just reaching New Zealand. We've got many things to do here in our country, but adding 12 to 13 other smaller countries, that's a large scope, with lots of travel, lots of different time zones. We have wonderful staff that serve in Fiji, Tonga, Samoa and Papua New Guinea. So there's already established ministries, and so yes, how do we come alongside and help our staff in the Pacific Islands reach their campuses, reach their athletes, help their churches, reach their communities? By expanding our scope, it means all our Kiwi leaders need to step up. And so it provides an opportunity for leaders to grow their leadership, delegate to others and get young leaders involved in a very exciting mission. So reaching the Pacific Islands is also about reaching New Zealand, and I want to see Kiwis go to the islands. The South Pacific is part of our story and we just need to be involved.
You may feel like you've reached the end of the story as we've reached the now. The culmination of 50 years of labourers working in the harvest field. But this is not the end of the story. There is more to tell. And this is not the end of the quest, but merely a pause on the journey.
A joyous pause as we look back on the hills and the valleys that we've journeyed through. There are more mountains to come.
Will you be a part of the rest of the story? Will you be a part of the quest to let the world know of God's truth and grace?
Through Christ, we stepped out in faith and won students, workers, and family members for Christ, building them in their faith.
We saw fruitfulness in different areas, in New Zealand and overseas. And by the grace of God and the decades of faithful service, we grew.
What could God do with you? How does your story fit into God's great story of the world? And how can you be a catalyst and move forward on your quest? The quest to follow God and making disciples everywhere.